There is a very specific, volatile danger that comes from bruising the fragile ego of a spoiled teenager who has never been told the word no. When you mix limitless family wealth, deep-seated insecurities, and the claustrophobic gossip mill of a deep southern town, you get a powder keg just waiting for a match. I learned this the hard way during my senior year of high school, when a simple, polite rejection turned into a psychotic smear campaign designed to destroy my entire future. But the thing about throwing stones in a glass house is that eventually, someone is going to throw a brick back. And my brick came in the form of rusty nails, poison ivy, crushed gravel, and a jar of rotting catfish bait that would turn a $150,000 luxury SUV into a biohazard on wheels. Growing up in the Deep South, in a town where the Spanish moss practically chokes the oak trees and everyone knows your grandmother's maiden name, privacy is an illusion. We had one massive consolidated high school. You went to class with the same kids you shared a sandbox with, played sports with the same siblings, and shopped at the same single grocery store. By the time you were 18, the town felt less like a community and more like a suffocating terrarium. I was the only openly gay kid in my grade, having come out years prior. Thanks to a fiercely supportive family, I wore my identity like armor. I had a thick skin, a tight circle of friends, and I didn't care about the whispers in the pews on Sunday mornings. I was also quietly and happily dating an older guy named Vance, a relationship my traditional father fully supported because Vance treated me with genuine respect. Then came Sterling. Sterling was a sophomore, a newly minted 16-year-old with bleached blonde hair, a wardrobe entirely composed of designer labels, and an attitude that screamed generational wealth. He had recently destroyed his first car by driving it through a residential fence, a classic small-town scandal, so his parents immediately bought him a gleaming, obsidian-black Mercedes G-Wagon. When Sterling decided to come out, a mutual friend pulled me aside. She worried the local culture would eat him alive and asked if I could mentor him, show him the ropes of surviving high school with a target on his back. Reluctantly, I agreed. We met at a local coffee shop on a sticky Tuesday afternoon. Sterling didn't want advice on handling bullies. He spent the entire hour staring at me, practically vibrating with a nervous, intense energy. Before I could finish my iced latte, he confessed he had massive feelings for me. I set my cup down, offering him a gentle, empathetic smile. I explained that I was extremely flattered, but I was already seeing someone and I was very happy. It wasn't a secret. My relationship with Vance was standard currency in the school's rumor mill. Sterling's reaction was not normal. The nervous energy evaporated, replaced by a flat, dead-eyed stare. He didn't yell. He just nodded slowly, stood up, and walked out to his tank of a car without another word. I thought that was the end of it. I was horribly wrong. In our school, there was a massive group chat of over 1,000 students set up to coordinate the annual junior-senior prank war. The rules were simple: keep it harmless, no property damage, and respect the addresses of kids who opted out. I dropped a message in the chat stating I was sitting this one out, explicitly asking people to avoid my house since my family was renting. My phone buzzed almost immediately. It was a direct reply in the massive chat, sent by Sterling. "What, you can't afford to buy the house with all the cash you've been making as a prostitute for your 50-year-old sugar daddy?" I stared at the glowing screen, the words burning into my retinas. A hot, blinding rush of blood pounded behind my ears. For the record, Vance was nowhere near 50, but the sheer audacity of the lie left me breathless. By the next morning, the rumor had infected the entire school. Coaches gave me weird, lingering looks in the hallways. A few of the more zealously religious teachers seemed to take perverse joy in grading me harshly. I was a pariah overnight, but I gritted my teeth. I had an acceptance letter to a top-tier university sitting on my desk at home. I had Vance, my family, and my real friends. I could survive the whispers. But Sterling wasn't satisfied with whispers. He wanted me ruined. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. It was Brody, a junior who was fiercely popular, unequivocally straight, and completely bewildered. Brody informed me that Sterling had escalated the campaign. The new rumor wasn't just about prostitution. Sterling was telling anyone who would listen that I had cheated on Vance, solicited Brody, and filmed an illegal, highly explicit video with him. The gravity of this lie felt like a physical blow to the stomach. Possessing and producing illegal material involving an underage student wasn't just high school drama, it was a felony. It was the kind of accusation that got college acceptances revoked and ruined lives permanently. Brody was furious. He knew exactly where the rumor originated because Sterling had been obsessively messaging him for months, trying to get his attention. Brody offered to write a formal statement denying the entire thing. Better yet, he sent me a massive digital folder filled with screenshots of Sterling's unhinged Instagram direct messages and texts. It was a goldmine of digital harassment, proving Sterling was fabricating the entire narrative out of spite. I locked the files away, a loaded gun waiting in my digital vault. The rumor eventually burned out because it was too absurd to prove, but the psychological toll had pushed me to the absolute edge. Sterling had tried to burn my life to the ground over a bruised ego. Now it was my turn to play with fire. My inspiration came from a dark corner of the internet, but the execution was entirely my own. The first stop was a dilapidated bait and tackle shop on the county line. I walked straight to the back and purchased a massive glass jar of fermented catfish bait. If you have never been fishing in the murky waters of the South, you cannot comprehend this smell. It is a thick, congealed paste of rotting blood, rancid cheese, and decaying fish parts. It smells like a wet dumpster left out in the August sun. I waited for a freezing, frost-bitten morning in late February. I knew our school parking lot was a surveillance dead zone. My own car had been keyed months prior, and the administration had practically shrugged. Arriving an hour before the first bell, I slipped through the rows of frosted vehicles until I found it. Sterling's pristine, oversized G-Wagon. My breath plumed in the freezing air as I pulled a hammer and 3 galvanized nails from my heavy coat pocket. I didn't slash the tires, that was amateur work. Instead, I drove 1 nail deep into the thick tread of 3 separate tires. They wouldn't pop immediately. They would slowly bleed air, leaving him stranded on random shoulders of the highway over the next few weeks, looking like a sheer run of terrible luck. Next came the thick gardening gloves. I had spent the previous afternoon foraging in the woods behind my neighborhood. Taking the crushed, oil-rich leaves of poison ivy, I aggressively rubbed the plant matter over the underside of every single chrome door handle. The irritating oils were invisible to the naked eye, a ghost waiting to cause blistering agony every time he opened his doors. But I was just getting warmed up. From my left pocket, I withdrew a plastic container holding a mixture I had perfected in my garage. Thick petroleum jelly stirred heavily with jagged, sharp driveway gravel. I smeared this abrasive paste thickly across the rubber blades of his windshield wipers. The jelly would keep the rocks stuck in place. The next time it rained, the moment he flicked those wipers on, the gravel would drag across the glass, carving deep, irreparable canyons into his windshield. Finally, the grand finale. I popped the lid off the jar of catfish bait. The stench hit the frigid air like a physical punch, making my eyes water. I moved to the base of his windshield, locating the plastic cowl panel that housed the exterior air intakes for the climate control system. With a steady hand, I poured the thick, rotting slop directly into the vents, watching it slide down into the inaccessible depths of his vehicle's HVAC system. The beauty of this trap was the timing. It was February. It was freezing. He wouldn't be using his air conditioning for at least another month. That fermented sludge was going to sit deep inside the dashboard, warming up as spring approached, rotting and festering in the dark. And on that first humid, 80-degree April afternoon, when he finally cranked the AC dial to max, the cabin of his luxury SUV would instantly fill with the vaporized fumes of 1,000 decaying corpses. The smell would embed itself into the leather seats, the headliner, the carpets. The car would be entirely undrivable, and short of dismantling the entire dashboard piece by piece, there was no way to clean it out. I slipped away into the morning fog, my heart pounding a steady, victorious rhythm. For the next few weeks, I watched and waited. I heard grumblings through the grapevine about Sterling having a string of flat tires. I noticed him furiously scratching at his hands in the hallways, his skin bright red and inflamed. But I never got to see the climax of the catfish bait because suddenly Sterling vanished. He didn't show up to school. His seat in the cafeteria sat empty. Being the paranoid, obsessive type, I logged into a burner social media account to check his profiles. Everything was gone. His Instagram, his TikTok, his Facebook, all deactivated, a ghost. Curiosity gnawing at me, I typed his full name into a search engine. I expected to find a rumor about him being sent to boarding school. Instead, I found a freshly published article from a local news outlet 3 states over. There, staring back at me in high definition, was Sterling's mugshot. He looked disheveled, pale, and terrified. The headline read, "Juvenile arrested after attempting to impersonate federal official with a firearm at family theme park." I read the article 3 times, my jaw practically on the floor. Apparently, Sterling had taken a weekend trip out of state, acquired a fake badge, strapped a loaded handgun to his hip, and tried to bypass security at a massive theme park by claiming he was on official government business. It was an act of sheer, unadulterated lunacy. The kind of arrogant delusion that only comes from a lifetime of zero consequences. But the state police didn't care who his daddy was. They had locked him up on multiple felony charges. The universe had handed me the ultimate weapon and the safety was already off. The article hadn't gained much traction locally yet. I made sure to fix that. I copied the link and opened the massive junior-senior prank group chat, the exact same chat where he had tried to ruin my life with the prostitution rumor months prior. I pasted the link. Then, I went further. I forwarded the mugshot and the article to the manager of the country club where he was supposed to work that summer. I found the admissions email for the prestigious out-of-state university he bragged about getting into, and I sent it there too, under the guise of an anonymous concerned community member. By third period, the entire school was vibrating with the news. The silence of the library was broken by 100 gasps and frantic whispers as the link spread like a digital wildfire. The teachers knew, the coaches knew, the parents knew. Sterling was officially a pariah, a punchline, and a convicted felon before he even got his diploma. I graduated a few months later and left that suffocating little town without a single glance in the rearview mirror. I never heard what ultimately happened to Sterling. I don't know if his parents managed to buy his way out of a prison sentence, or if he's still driving a luxury SUV that smells like low tide in hell. What I do know is that actions have consequences. You can only use your wealth and privilege as a shield for so long before reality comes knocking. And sometimes, reality comes armed with a jar of rotting fish and an internet connection. If there is a lesson to be learned here, it's that you should never try to destroy someone who has nothing left to lose and a lot of free time on their hands. Respect the people around you, mind your own business, and for the love of everything, check your air vents. If you enjoyed this story of absolute, unhinged karma, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and let me know in the comments how you would have handled a bully like Sterling. Until next time, keep your secrets safe and your windshield wipers clean.